All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Welcome back to my podcast. My name is John, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that's actually quite personal for me. We're going to be talking about hair loss, more specifically, men's hair loss, because I think it's about two-thirds of men actually go through this, and I can honestly tell you it is an unfortunate experience. It's not fun, and so I'm here to give you some encouragement and maybe a little bit of helpful wisdom when it comes to the subject of losing your hair and all the insecurities that follow from that. And so I just want to start right off by saying, hey, you know what? Your worth as a man or a woman, if you're a girl listening to this, is not determined by how beautiful you are or how you measure up to modern beauty standards. That is completely untrue, and that is not the metric for your value. That is not the metric for your value to society. It's not your metric for value to in relationships. It's not your metric for value to your family. It's not your metric for value to your community. It is a very, very poor metric to judge yourself by. And so stop. Just stop immediately. However, it is true that it is uncomfortable. Especially for someone like me. I grew up with a very, very thick head of hair. Everyone would always compliment me, John, your hair is so thick. Your hair is really thick. It's amazing. It's incredible. And I was like, yeah, thanks so much. My hair really is thick. My hair really is beautiful. I really am. I really do have great hair, don't I? Well, that's just awesome. They think I'm awesome. And I took pride in my thick hair. I took pride in it, and I was happy that I had it. And then, wouldn't you know it, in my early 20s, mid-20s, it starts falling out. And it starts falling out for real. Like, you can see it now. If you look at the back of my head, it's quite thin now. And that sucked. That was a really painful process to have something that you valued, something that you felt affirmed by, something that other people gave you compliments for, something that other people gave you affirmation for. To have that taken away is never pleasant. It's never fun. And so for me, it is unpleasant. It is an unpleasant experience, and it is a bit of an embarrassing experience. And to be honest, I really, really wish I didn't have to go through it. It's like, I don't want to lose my hair. And I am taking some steps. I'm not going to the length of using Rogaine or medication. I don't believe it's worth that. That's for you to decide, by the way, if you're a man losing your hair. I'm not here to tell you not to use Rogaine or not to use medication. It's up to you. You need to do your own research, weigh the pros and cons, and decide if the pros outweigh the cons for you, and it's something that is worth it for you. For me personally, using any sort of chemicals or medication and just putting all that stuff in my body isn't worth the benefit of having me regrow my hair. I would rather just rock it bald than use any sort of medication or chemicals on my body. But that's my personal preference. Again, you have to do your own research and decide what works best for you. But what I want to share with you is the idea that you don't need to be as insecure about it as you think you do. I don't think it's true that people actually really judge you based on that. I don't think that's true at all. And I think that one of the things that we can do for ourselves is to really understand what our value is and decide what our contribution will be. For example, if I decide that my contribution to society or the workplace or the community is to have a full head of hair, to be, ridiculously simplified, of course I'm going to feel insecure and devalued because I'm failing to do what I have decided what my contribution will be. I'm failing to hit the mark on what I think is valuable. And so really our values determine our emotional response to things. If you don't value something, you don't have an emotional response to it one way or another, whether you keep it, whether you don't. I know men in my life who are balding and their hair is falling out, And they don't give two hoots about it because they don't value what that brings to their life, and they don't value what they lose by not having hair. And therefore, keeping their head of hair has no value to them, and losing their hair has no consequence to them. And so what I really want to encourage you is you get to choose ultimately what your values are. And if you're really struggling with insecurity, like I am, / was, still am a little bit, I would really encourage you. Choose what you value, and more importantly, choose what your contribution will be. What do you want to be known for? You got to pick something that is beyond what you look like and bring that to the table in your social circles. And this can be very, very difficult to figure it out. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have it all figured out either. But I have chosen that I want to bring something more to the table than what I look like. And so I press into helping people. I press into supporting others and being a good person to be around. And I get a good response from that, from my workplace, from my community, and I can get more affirmation in that way from something that I value. And when I press into something that is meaningful, the insecurity that I get and the embarrassment I feel from having my hair fall out suddenly starts to feel not as important, and I start to feel more empowered to ignore it and not give a darn and not worry about it. And I think that all comes back to mindset. What are you dwelling on? What are you focusing on? And what are you working towards? And I think by, at least what's worked for me, is that by deciding to put my focus and my effort into something that extends beyond how I look, extends beyond how I measure up to society's beauty standards, I've been able to gain a lot more fulfillment and purpose from that than I ever would have from, just looking good. Not just a pretty face, I actually have something to offer. And that's true for everybody. So I really want to encourage you, if you feel embarrassed or you're judging yourself too harshly by comparing yourself to others or others' beauty standards, and you feel like you don't measure up, stop valuing that particular metric and pick something else that you think is meaningful and valuable and press into that. And I think when you do that, at least in my experience, the insecurities and all that follows suddenly starts to feel not as important, and it becomes a lot more manageable. And so that's what I've been doing to deal with it. That's my really deep philosophical dive into losing one's hair. I don't know if anyone's ever made it that philosophical before. Probably not. And to make it super simple, if all else fails, you can just go bald and not worry about it ever again. The Rock, Jason Statham, and a lot of other great-looking guys are completely bald, and it seems to work for them. And so, if all else fails, just cut it off, have a nice, smooth, symmetrical bald head, and don't worry about it. I've already done that a little bit. It's not too bad. I might do it again. We'll see. Don't stress. If you're giving it way too much stop it. Your value is not based on that. And more importantly, women will not judge you based on that. Okay, 2/3 of all men struggle with hair loss at some point. And I'm pretty sure a lot more than 2/3 of all men than 1/3 of all men are getting the girl. So don't judge yourself too harshly. You're not doomed. It's not over. You can still get the girl. And honestly, it's confidence that can really help you with that. On my previous podcast the next one that I talked about. And so, you're not doomed, and it's not a big a deal in my opinion, and I would encourage you to decide for yourself that it's not a big a deal and press into something else that brings you far more value in your life and gives you far more meaning and purpose. And I think that you can defeat your insecurities that way, just by making them seem irrelevant by comparison to all the other awesome stuff that you're doing in your life. That would be my advice. And to understand that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, no matter if you have hair or not. You're still a miracle. It's like a 1 in 400 trillion odds that you can become a human being. And you did that. So you're incredibly lucky. And you deserve to be loved, whether or not you have hair. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for being here. Follow me on social media for more tips, life hacks, tricks, etc., etc. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I really enjoy having you guys around. And I will see you next time.